California regulators have seized control of struggling First Republic Bank. The FDIC accepted a bid from JP Chase to assume First Republic's deposits and virtually all of its assets. It is now the third major bank to fail in recent months following the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank in March. So it is just about 9:30 in the morning here on the East Coast, and the markets have just opened up. You can see market is relatively flat for the morning. We'll keep an eye out, obviously, and bring you news as warranted. So far, no major seismic changes in market volatility as we open here at the Dow Jones. So let's bring in CBS News' Caitlin Huey-Burns right now. She is one of the featured anchors for our revamped political program, America Decides, and she is following all of this and more for us from Washington, D.C. Caitlin, I know it's early, but this news happened sort of on Friday. So have you heard any response or seen any response on the Hill about the sale of First Republic and what impact it might have on the debt ceiling debate?
Yeah, we're still waiting for some reaction from lawmakers now that this is settled. But there is a big question among progressive Democrats, especially the Elizabeth Warrens of the world, in terms of their reaction to this, because it's Jamie Dimon's bank who is buying Silicon Valley Bank. And there are questions about kind of the role of an expanded bank. And there has been a lot of criticism, of course, as you remember, during the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank about these regulations that were rolled back in the Trump administration era for these smaller banks. And so there's still going to be more scrutiny applied. But that's kind of the lane that I would look at to see what the reaction is now that this big bank is buying what was once a regional bank.
So let's talk about looking ahead to campaign season. Abortion rights continue to be a major issue heading into 2024. A Republican Congresswoman from South Carolina, Nancy Mace, spoke about this on Face the Nation this weekend. I want to play some of that sound.
There's so much when it comes to protecting life and protecting women that we can agree on in terms of gestational limits. That's something that can happen at the state and the federal level. And I talk to and listen to my constituents all the time. And I read a letter from a woman who's no longer Republican. She's an independent voter now. She's pro-choice. And her gestational limits are 14 weeks. Well, I'm a pro-life legislature. Mine are 15 to 20 weeks. We want to make sure there are exceptions.
All right, so some have suggested that, the Republican Party really suffered during the midterm elections because they didn't have a clear message on abortion.
Right.
What has the directive been to the GOP candidates from the Republican National Committee when it comes to talking about abortion rights?
Right. During the campaign, it was kind of stay away from the topic and just focus on the economy and crime. That's what voters care about. Well, we saw that voters were very much animated by this post-Dobbs decision, so in the midterms, but also just recently in that Wisconsin State Supreme Court race where we saw Democrats win that seat overwhelmingly on the issue of abortion rights. So I've been talking to a lot of people on both sides of the aisle about this, and Republicans have kind of been struggling to gain footing on this issue because they haven't really been able to pinpoint where they are and what kind of role they want the federal government to have. Remember, the argument from conservatives over the past, 5 or so decades was that this should be a state's decision. Now it is. You are seeing Republicans say, well, they also are trying to grapple with their own positions. What's interesting, though, is the Susan B. Anthony list, which is a anti-abortion rights group, has been drawing a line in the sand. They were very angry at Republicans for not staking out a definitive position on abortion. And they said that Republicans essentially, because of that, lost these seats. So they have staked out a position where they want candidates to draw the line at 15 weeks. Now, they say that they are not going to support any Republican presidential candidate who does not support that. And so that's something to watch here as you see the campaign ramping up at the presidential level. Remember when we talked to Tim Scott a couple of weeks ago, he really struggled to define what kind of role he wanted the federal government to have, whether he would support this. Eventually came around to saying that he would sign pro-life legislation. But what does that mean? And Republicans are grappling with this idea as we head into the campaign.
So South Carolina Senator Tim Scott says he will be making a major announcement later this month. Will he make it official that he's running for president?
Well, as you know, in our interview, he said a couple of times that he plans on being the nominee. That was when I was asking him if he would support Donald Trump if he were the nominee, and he evaded the question and said, look, I plan on being the nominee. So that gives you kind of everything you need to know about how he is planning this campaign. He launched an exploratory committee earlier this month, but is expected to announce a full campaign in May, as he kind of previewed in an announcement last night. Now, he is campaigning as someone who is bringing an optimistic vision to the party. He's trying to draw those contrasts with Donald Trump, but not going after him by name or directly. And that's also something to watch, guys, in this presidential primary that's really heating up now is, do these candidates take the gloves off when it comes to Donald Trump? We haven't really seen that yet. They're kind of competing against each other to be the alternative to Donald Trump, who is leading in the polls, remains, has a firm grasp on the Republican Party base at this point. A long, long way to go, of course, but that's something to watch as these announcements come through.
Meantime, former President Donald Trump, also a candidate. He's in Scotland today. I know he already has a golf resort or whatever in Scotland. So what's the purpose of this trip? Is it business? Is it pleasure? Is it politics?
Yeah, I think a little of everything. What's interesting, too, about Donald Trump that I would point out is last week he gave a speech in New Hampshire, and that was kind of the first time of this campaign that he really went after Joe Biden. And what we've seen since he launched his election bid is that he's been creating a campaign tailored to his own grievances, especially the investigations around him. And, Republicans have wanted whoever the Republican nominee is to keep the focus on Biden, and Trump hasn't done that. But last week, he did start to draw those contrasts. So that's something to kind of keep an eye out here. He's been going after DeSantis very heavily, giving him all sorts of nicknames, and his groups have been going after DeSantis very strong. It's also something to keep an eye on as DeSantis might ramp up his campaign, whether he steps up those attacks as well.
All right, Caitlin, looking forward to seeing and hearing more from you on America Decides.
Thank you. Good to see you.
All right, so be sure to join Caitlin later on today for our first episode of America Decides. It streams at 5 p.m. Eastern right here on CBS News.